Hey everyone, let's talk about the latest slew of Final Fantasy VII Remake units that we've gotten on Thursday. It's Cloud, Strife and Avalanche's Barret. And sad to say, the background music for the pulling screen is just a regular battle theme, which is obviously an amazing track. But me personally, I would have slightly preferred the track Those Who Fight Further, which is plain amazing, but no biggie. The battle theme is iconic, it's cool, but I personally prefer Those Who Fight Further. Anyway, the topic of today's review, Cloud Strife, our latest premium unit, and Avalanche's Barret, who wishes he was premium but isn't. Luckily for our wallets though he isn't, so let's dive right in. Starting with Cloud Strife, the actual star of this show, I was about to say, of this banner. He is pretty much the same unit in base and Brave, LB finisher in base, strong LB finisher in Brave. He does have slight nuances in both forms though, like in base form he has You're Out of Luck, which directly increases True Cross Slash, which is his very iconic base LB. And in Brave Shift, he's got the Nothing Personal cooldown. He loses You're Out of Luck, for that matter. And Nothing Personal, same thing basically. It just increases his Brave Shifted True Ascension Limit Burst instead. While also providing 300 attack buff and also attack break resistance. Sadly, not for 100% attack. 2B, for example, has 400% attack buff on her RO40 type attack, but oh well, it's like that's what at the end of the day I feel like there will be a lot of comparisons to 2B, by the way, in this review, so just to give you a fair warning. And I feel like there's a lot of give and take between Cloud Strife and our 2B that we've gotten, so there are certain things that I do prefer on 2B than what the JP premium unit has, where there are a couple of things that I will point out that I do prefer on the JP premium units, such as Cloud, over our global premium units, such as 2B. Now, the overall kit, I'd have to give it to Alum for this one. It is a JP unit, first. B, with Brave Shift, and C, a proper kit. So, Cloud, he does have the inconsistency that is Fill LB and Elemental Burst, which is super lazy, but oh well, can't complain. We have the same thing on global units these days, A2 and 2B being on the forefront of this. So 150% amp, 2 lightning element for 2 turns, effectively 1 turn only. Now, the cool thing that I do appreciate about Cloud is that he has 4 different elemental imbues: wind, ice, fire and lightning. Obviously he performs best in lightning element, but for consistency's sake, let me tell you that I feel like global units are doing this slightly better. Now take Wilk, for example. He is a premium unit too, and he has 2 60% amps, namely wind and earth. Now 2 is obviously just half of 4, but the 2 that he has, he does very well. Meanwhile, Cloud, he has 4 imbues, but rather underwhelming amplifications. As you can see, wind, ice and fire are only 30%, and technically speaking, lightning too. Now, with lightning being his main element, I would have wished for this elemental lightning ability to be 60% amp. This could have been a cooldown for all that I care, and what's also very important to note, that elemental lightning ability increases his LB modifier. So keep that in mind, you will see that later on again. But note that it's missing the cannot be dispelled tag on this. So if you want to use Cloud as a flex element unit, because he is a flex element unit, you will have issues using this particular ability unless you have abilities such as Sylvie's rolling amps that just remove the amplification provided by anything else and replace it with a different element imbue. Dispelling it means you also dispel the LB modifier increase. That's an issue. and you will come to hate it rather soon, to be honest. So always keep that in mind. Rage Beast Roar, Dispel, etc. Those things do not work. They also dispel the LB modifier, sadly, which is not an issue on the other ability that we've just seen. You're out of luck and nothing personal. Both of these LB modifier increases cannot be dispelled. So yeah, while the kit is good, it does have some minor inconsistencies that I would have liked, especially for a premium unit, to be removed. Now, Cloud also got a global upgrade, and this one affects True Infinity's End, which on the baseline, anything non-morale scaling, is a 1400 physical damaging ability, available turn 1, 1 turn cooldown, and single cast when dual wielding, and it's also unique cast. So always keep that in mind. And yeah, the global server got an upgrade. It's Strength of Will, Cloud Strife, which unlocks at EX +2. And this activates the Strength of Will ability, which increases the ability modifier by 1x with 220x per 10% morale above 100%, meaning at the end of the day, this is a 3601x ability. Pretty good. It is very much up there with the top dog DPSers, such as A2, for example. But A2 has the upside of having Berserk on it. Just a small spoiler already for the damage comparison. Furthermore, something that I really appreciate on Cloud Strife is the preemptive LB boost attack. And this one is a 100x LB modifier increase to all limit bursts of himself with physical damage and physical damage with consecutive increase. Does this sound familiar to you? It should, because this is the exact same effect that Titus's STMR does, which then translates into you don't need Titus's STMR anymore. Those abilities, they do not stack, they have the same ability ID by the game, meaning using Titus's STMR is just a redundancy, it has no effect, it does nothing. So spare yourself that slot, equipment slot, you can use it for something else, such as his own STMR or the Clash of Wills STMR. But it's an amazing ability or passive to have. I wish that at least 2B had something similar, be it 50x increase, because she has 2 portions of her hit. So I would have preferred that instead of the wonky ability modifier increases that 2B has, but so be it. I mean, Cloud isn't perfect, he has to go through 2 ability modifiers as well. And then something that I wish 2B and A2 had too, and that is Omnikiller +1 when being EX +2, and that's just straight up 100% Omnikiller, and his TMR/STMR passive is another 100% Omnikiller, meaning right out of the gate, if you have him at EX +2 and his TMR/STMR equipped, you're looking at 200% Omnikiller, and this is really, really nice to have, and it's basically checks all the premium marks here. I do expect premium units to have 200% Omnikiller, and it's really, really infuriating that 2B doesn't have that, for example. But it's good to see that Cloud does have it, and that makes him a little bit more valuable for enemy types that are rather rare, such as aquatic, insect, bird, for example. Now the LBs of Cloud, the base form LB, it is pretty strong in itself. Keep in mind, all the values that you see here have to or need to be increased by 100x, because that's just his passive for 5 turns. So his base form LB, you could state that it's a 350x LB notwithstanding, because that 100x increase is just there for 5 turns, beginning with the fight. But it also is a 40% Greatsword Emperor, which is amazing, and thus should be essential to your max burst rotation, but we'll take a look at the max burst rotation in a few minutes. 4 turns, which is nice. Also 80% defense break, which is kind of whatever, but in line with most other JP premium units. I believe Oren had the same thing on his regular LB, so that's fine. I am kind of disappointed by the 200% attack buff. This should be 400%, and 150% LB buff is also very disappointing. It can't be dispelled, but this should be at least 200 or 250. But he has abilities for that, so kind of excusable, but still, but actually not really for a premium unit in particular. This should be max stats all around when we're paying 60k plus for a unit to pity. The Brave Shift LB, it does read rather unimpressive, but when you add up all the goodies, this is rather impressive. So it's a 300x ability, physical damage, has no element like I mentioned a few minutes ago, and thus marks a really good premium unit, to be honest. You can use whatever element you like. Just keep in mind that if you use that elemental lightning ability, you have to have an ability that only removes the imbue and nothing else. So the units that come to mind are Sylvie, what else is there? Edward, Elric, and Alphonse do the same thing. Yeah, and I believe that's it for now. We may or may not get someone in the future. Hopefully we'll get a supporting unit soon that does the same thing as Sylvie does. I mean, I wouldn't mind 100% AoE Ice Amp with removing amps, or Wind or Earth, something else like Light or Lightning, to be honest. So, but we'll see. But those are the two options. Obviously, if you're using Sylvie, you can easily forego the 150% Lightning Amp and just go Earth, and he'll be fine, and he'll still have a high modifier. So regarding modifier, 300x plus 100x plus 60x plus 70x marks 530x in total for Cloud with all modifiers up and running. If you add Sylvie to the party, which you most likely will do, he is looking at a 550x ability modifier. That is really good. Now, technically speaking, you could include Tyvis' Spirit, and I believe I didn't include Tyvis' Spirit in my rotation because it's rather clunky to do, but technically speaking, you could. So yeah, no complaints here. I like that it's flat flex element. Now let's check out his TMR STMR vision card. The TMR, Materia, 50% LB damage, 50% human Machina killer, decent. Super Trust Master, Cloves for 140 attack, 55 defense, and 100 true double hand attack. And the vision card unlocks at EX plus 3, is maxed out immediately at 150 base attack, provides 100% LB, 100% human killer, physical magical, and Final Fantasy VII only units gain 500 static attack. So the Trust Master, it is okay, it's pretty good, but it's unfortunate that it has very, very common killer types. Machina, we have plenty of 100% Machina killers, though STMRs for the most part. And human killer, it's just so abundantly available that especially these two types aren't that desirable. But all in all, I feel like this is still a pretty good TMR, so no real complaints from my side. The Super Trust Master, I do appreciate in what it does. It is a decent third or tertiary option to the Clash pieces, the light armor one and the Clove piece. But yeah, those are obviously superior, both the Chain Cap version as well as the Rulers version. This, on the other hand, because it activates his Super Trust Master passive or Trust passive, it is still very good, and for the most part you may end up using this over, say, the Clash pieces, because this one caps out his true double hand attack immediately. But still there are other options, and overall I'd say it's a nice side grade to the Clash pieces. The Vision card, on the other hand, I feel like it's very strong for Final Fantasy VII units, but for anybody else, say 2B for example, it doesn't boast any damage gain. The 500 static attack being locked to Final Fantasy VII makes this rather, I don't want to say unusable for anybody else, but that's honestly the truth. I would never use this on, say, my Paladin Sylvie, because it's just missing a lot of attack, but it could still be good if I don't really care about the attack and really want to max out the human killer. It highly depends on the boss or enemy type, but I feel like I'm not going to end up using it other than for Final Fantasy VII units. So much like Tifa's and the premium Tifa and the premium Sephiroth cards, those were sometimes used on other units, but mostly on themselves. Alright, now let's talk about Barret before we get to the damage comparisons and whatnot. So Barret is a discounted Fabled Guardian jacked, if you want to say so, with different elements. So he's a physical tank with fire-locked defense scaling SLB, and he has a slightly gimped down kit compared to jacked. So he has a physical cover ability with 50% cover, with 50% mitigation, general mitigation, 50% physical mitigation, and 65 to 80% cover mitigation. That's pretty much standard these days, and it's rather unimpressive, honestly. He has Fill LB, and what you can tell already from looking at the kit details as well, he has no amplification buff of his own, which is very, very bad. And his SLB is fire typed, so you will run into issues, especially damaging issues, with this dude. Now his Provoke 2 ability is a 75% general mitigation for himself, 2 turns only, which is very, very disappointing. It makes his rotation super, super clunky, even though he has triple cast innately. Still, rather unfortunate that you have to use his Provoke 2 ability every second turn, basically, or else you're gonna have troubles. He also has a few magical spells: Protect Ga, Barret Ja, and Barret Ja. Those pretty much all do the same thing. So the Protect Ga is his 75% physical mid and 50% general mid, while the adjust spells are, I believe, 50% mitigation, physical, general, and magical, while giving 200 or providing 200% fire/wind resistance, which is okay, but still not particularly good. And I believe those abilities also replenish 8 LB crystals per usage. So while they are fine in themselves, they overlap a little bit too much. True Lifesaver is his Omni cover, 1 turn only, just like Lilith, just like Jacked. I am not a huge fan of the 1 turn Omni cover. I do prefer Chow's or Esther's Omni cover lasting 3 turns. That's much better, it's much more usable, and it provides a lot of usability. That 1 turn, 5 turn cooldown is rather... It's fine for the most part, because bosses these days, even in Clash of Worlds, have only 1 turn where they burst hard, and so you only really need that 1 turn for Omni cover. But I would prefer them being a little bit more dangerous to the party, requiring you to have either a huge party mitigation or a unit that can deal with it appropriately, and those 2 units are only Chow and Esther for the time being. And the rest of it is rather weak. What I'll give him is his We Are Counting on You Man, the 30 LB Entrust ability to 1 ally. It is on a cooldown, sadly, with 3 turns cooldown, but available turn 1. And nicely, or what I do appreciate is that, just like Lilith or Paladin Cecil, he has that preemptive buff Rager, which is the 200% fire preemptive buff to the party, with some auto cover for physical, which is very weak, 40 to 45%, by the way. So his Limit Burst in SLB. The base form Limit Burst 200x fire physical damage with death scaling, 85 magic break, 87 attack break, 70% general mitigation, which is weak, to be honest, for all allies. Physical mitigation for the party 70%, and 75% race mitigation against humans and reapers. And the good thing though, it's Bolting Strike variant 1, meaning the good kind of Bolting Strike that everybody uses. His super limit burst, also Bolting Strike variant 1, and it's just flat out higher stats. So it's the same ability essentially with higher stats, meaning his LB now hits for 300x instead of 200x. His attack break is 89% versus 87% prior. His mitigation buffs are 75%, with the one exception that the type mitigation is now 85% instead of 75%. So rather boring use of the super limit burst feature. The global units that do usually a better job in having a different ability altogether. Actually, I believe it's just all of that has a different ability, but oh well. Now let's check out his TMR, STMR vision card. TMR, it's a materia with 100% true double hand defense, or I should actually say true single wheel defense, because it allows you to use a shield too, and you'd still get the true double hand passive. But oh well. Semantics. And the thing that irks me a little bit, but it's fine because it's a TMR, is that it requires you to wear a gun or fist. But still, the only ability materia that is stronger than this is, technically speaking, Behemoth's STMR, but that's an STMR, so apples and oranges comparison, I'd say. But still, it's a good TMR. The Super Trustmaster is a 200 gun, standard gun variants, 1.35 to 1.75x variants, 180 attack and 220 defense, so nothing outstanding here, just your average 220 weapon with the appropriate stat to balance things out. Has 30% fire and wind resistance, and Barret exclusively gains 500 static defense. The vision card is pretty much the same as Eject's, but worse. So he has 100 defense, base defense, and 1000 base HP. Guts activation as long as you are at or above 30% HP, 500 static defense and HP, and at level 10 you gain 100% human killer, and the level 7 and level 10 passives are for physical tanks only. So the STMR is rather weak overall. While it is good for himself, nobody else is going to ever use it. There's far better options out there. And the vision card, like I mentioned, is just strictly worse than Eject's. It's also worse than Midnight Revelers and Power Cut. So you will never end up using this card over the three I mentioned just now. And now let's get to the damage calculation. So as always, pause this if you want to check out the parameters of my sheet. Let's check out Cloud first. So that's the build. It's build versus Aquatic and Insect. And a few notable things here. So I'm not using his Super Trustmaster because I'm using his TMR for the bonus. It turns out that using the Clash piece is still a damage gain, even if you have to use an outside materia slot for, or a materia slot for the True Double Hand, but that's fine. The three items that you always have to keep in mind are Buster Sword, maxed out at +4 because that's 1000 static attack, and 2 copies of Crescent Moon Charm, because Crescent Moon Charm was upgraded to include Cloud Strife, and that means he gains 500 static attack each, because this was a global upgrade back when Sephiroth back when Tifa released about a year ago or so, or 2 years ago. And this one allows you to stack the 500 static attack, which is not possible on the JP server, so that's pretty cool. And it's just flat 2000 attack for Cloud, which is really strong. But him being a true premium unit with 200% Omni Killer, he easily gears for Aquatic Insect. It's maxed out. That's pretty nice. So he is super easy to gear, even though he has 3 fixed slots. Also notice that he has no single elemental resistance in this build. So that is something to keep in mind when you go for his max burst rotation, as it includes being in Brave Shift for at least one turn. But he has two very good resistances, Charm, naturally, and Petrification, which comes from Behemoth, if I'm not totally mistaken. So the burst rotation. You start off with True Cross Slash in base form for the 40% Greatsword in peril. And then you have a choice. Now, if you can fill his LB easily, you can skip turn 2, the second turn I have on here, where I use Elemental Lightning, and include this ability with Nothing Personal and Elemental Burst Lightning, because technically speaking, we have 2 turns to fill his LB. That sounds rather doable to me, especially because he only has a 60 LB gauge. But if you don't, there is no issue in taking that one step or additional step to maximize his DPS. So there is a case to be made for only using 3 turns here. I went the safe road because I just feel like that it doesn't make any difference for his DPS overall. Because for the most part, you're looking at one burst phase, and that's pretty much it. So taking that extra turn just for Elemental Lightning is fine. And if you need the imperils, you can use a true triple slash 2 for a 30% imperil to fire, wind, ice, and lightning. But if it were me, I'd maximize the hell out of it, or min-max the hell out of it, and make sure that I don't need fill LB and just make this a free turn rotation. But that's the safe road. And at the end of the day, you use True Ascension in Brave Shift for his maximum burst damage. So rather easy rotation, if you ask me. Now let's check out Barret. And Barret is, or has, a lot of other issues. As you can tell, he has quite a few issues. First, he has to use God of Blitzball, because Jack's STMR works on physical damage dealers, physical defense scaling damage dealers, meaning Esther doesn't benefit from this because she's morale scaling, but Barret does, so that's a flat 100x increase to his LB. And as you can tell from building him versus Aquatic and Stone, he really doesn't build well for anything that is not his innate killer type. So he's a nightmare to gear for anything, hard locked into using Jack's STMR and TMR, meaning you had to have pulled for a premium unit to make this non-premium unit work. That feels awfully bad. So that doesn't boast confidence. And then there's the issue that he has very, very little LB damage to boot right from the get-go, meaning it's entirely super slot inefficient to build Barret. On the other hand, though, his maximum burst rotation is super simple. You do nothing for basically an eternity until you're ready to burst, and then you use God of Blitzball 1 turn before his Brave Shift or Limit Shift is available, aka the SLB, and then you SLB. And if you don't have Jack's STMR / Vision card, well, then you just wait for the SLB and fire away. But honestly, you will never end up using Barret. On another note, all of his abilities are super expensive, so make sure to have enough MP. God of Blitzball is 500 MP, and all the other abilities are at minimum 100 MP, some of which cost 300 and 500 as well. So keep in mind to always have a lot of MP. And even though he has 1440 MP on this build, it's still not enough to do everything every time, which is kind of ironic. The damage comparison for Dark Visions. As you can see, Cloud Strife takes up the #1 spot here. Now, one of the reasons is that he has a lot of attack, 14,000, which is very close to A2, and he does have a much higher damage ceiling than A2 has. And the same applies to 2B. Now, 2B, the difference between 2B and Cloud is explained by A, the 40% Great Sword in peril versus the 35% Katana in peril, and by the fact that Cloud has about 1000 to 1.5k more attack. And more attack on the defense values that we are looking at actually translates into huge damage gains. So the actual difference, if they were pretty much the same and using off element, 2B would be stronger than Cloud in that case, because 2B would then be able to use things such as Tie vs Spirit, and with Tie vs Spirit, 2B is a 650x modifier unit, whereas Cloud would be only 580x, and that would translate into a slightly higher damage output for 2B than Cloud. But that's off type and off element comparison. On element, Cloud is our number one DPS. And he beats out A2's damage by 116%, so it's not a huge increase, but it would have been a very huge increase had it not been for our global units, because check out the difference between Shitan and Cloud Strife. That's a huge difference, and it is good that Gumi balanced around that kind of damage with A2 and 2B. And I'm not too mad about the fact that A2 and 2B are already power crept in Dark Visions, because JP units are literally made for Dark Visions, for that one particular Dark Vision / Vision Word, and then mostly never seen again. So Cloud being at the very top, yeah, it just feels natural. I don't mind it, and I'm pretty sure that we will see enough units power creeping Cloud rather soon anyway. So I don't mind this one bit, and 2B is still the all-around better unit because she does have more things to her than just damage, where Cloud is just damage. Now, because Cloud has a morale scaling ability, we're also checking out his result. Oh, by the way, Barret is not worth mentioning. He was at the very bottom of the list with less than 50% of Jack's damage. Now, in Clash of Wills, as you can tell, 2B and A2, those are forces to be reckoned with, and Cloud Strife has no means of fighting against both of the two. So in this particular event or format, Cloud's LB finisher is only at 81% of 2B's damage, and the finishing move True Infinity's End is only 76% of 2B's damage. And I find this rather ironic. They gave him that that morale scaling finishing ability, but being 3601x divided by 7 is still less than what his LB does, so it's no surprise that the LB performs slightly better than his finishing move, and that way using him in Clash of Wills isn't that optimal. But he still deals more damage than Chizuru or Sky for the next Clash of Wills. Don't mind the December Clash unit, that's just a placeholder. I always put the latest unit at the top. I don't know how good she is, the unit that we are getting, but yeah. Or he is. So, oh, it is. I don't know what it is, honestly. But yeah, we'll see about that. It might be at the top, it might not be. Could be a supporter unit, could be a damager unit, debuffer unit, tank unit. We don't know at the time being, but let's hope it's a good unit. So yeah, Cloud Strife, he's a good DPS, but doesn't do anything for your morale gains. So let's check out the ratings. As always, pause this if you're new to this kind of video review of mine and read through what these ratings entail, because it's important to understand that I usually say no unit is inherently bad, it's just that the usage case is rather very different. So a 1 out of 10 is a complete niche unit which will only see usage in very, very niche situations, whereas a 10 out of 10 is being used every single time. And I have example units as well. So let's check out Cloud. With that in mind, Cloud for Dark Visions is a 7 out of 10, and for Clash of Worlds a 5 out of 10. The good things about Cloud are his very, very high damage in both Clash and Dark Visions. He does set a new benchmark for Dark Visions, which nets him +1 for that format. He does have a very strong vision card and STMR, and as you can tell, the colors indicate which format Cloud gains a point. So an orange plus, for example, means, or minus, means he's gaining or losing a point in that format, and a bluish +1 or -1 or 1 in general, gains/loses a point in dark visions. And I do appreciate that he is very easy to gear for literally anything. On the bad side of things, he does have no party support. He's entirely selfish, has a super one-dimensional kit because he doesn't do anything other than damage. He doesn't killer buff, he has no support abilities, and he also has nothing to offer for morale gain. And I feel like that even units with pure attacker typing, such as A2 and 2B, these units still have abilities that boost morale gain. A2 has it's not the finisher combo, I forgot the name, but she does have it, I know for sure. 2B has her 2 killer buffs in Brave Shift that also provide a lot of morale per cast, and Cloud has none of that, which isn't too surprising. A 5 out of 10 was a unit that has outside hindrances, and the outside hindrance here for Clash of Wills is that he has nothing to provide for the party in terms of morale gain or anything. So yeah, Cloud Strife, all in all, is a true premium unit that has almost all the necessary and good bells and whistles you'd expect, such as the 200% Omni Killer and rather self-sufficiency, or being self-sufficient, but he is missing the good supporting stuff, such as killer buffs that that global units usually tend to have. And that's why he's only a 7 out of 10 and 2B is an 8 out of 10. 2B has AoE killer buffs, for example. That's one of the differentiating points between the two, and that's why 2B is an 8 and Cloud Strife is a 7, for example. Cloud does excel in Lightning Element, but shows strong results outside of it as well. So overall, I feel like he's very expensive, but a good unit overall. It's just that his main role is going to be Dark Visions, and even in that particular format, fighting versus magic typed users is going to be an uphill battle, and he will most likely use it. So while being a 7 out of 10, you may not end up using him at all unless Lightning Element is heavily favored. And spoiler, unless we get Edge Crowns, it is not the case. And now let's check out Avalanche's Barret, and he is unexpectedly very, very bad. So the only good thing that I found about him is that he has that 30 LB Crystalline Trust ability on a cooldown, but I don't add a point for that. And for lore reasons, you could add that he is a good dad. I particularly liked the thought process going into the game, and that he always cared about the future of his kid or of his daughter so much. So I'd say he's a good dad. That could be a +1, but it wouldn't change the outcome of this rating. It'd still be a -1 out of 10. He has an incredibly bad kit with way too many overlapping supporting skills, and the tanking capabilities are very, very lacking compared to units such as Ronda in particular, but also Jacked or Lilith. And he entirely depends on outside support, especially when it comes to stat buffs, protection buffs, elemental resistances buffs, etc, etc. His damage is incredibly low, so low that I had to deduct an extra point for this, especially when compared to Jacked or Lilith. His TMR and STMR are very bad, and he does not have a single Imperil, neither elemental nor weapon Imperil. So Barret, all in all, is a trash tier unit, has no place in the game, and the only reason you would ever bring him literally is when there is a series locked event that absolutely hard looks you to a turn 2 clear, because turn 1 has, for example, an HP lock that keeps you from killing at turn 1. And I'd go even as far as to say that in the 7-star era, I would have skipped Barret too. That's how bad he is. And for the first time, I'm telling you, this is not a niche unit. Barret is plain trash. He should have been a 4-star unit. That would have been probably a good case for him. But even for a 7-star era, he's bad. And that closes out today's review. Thank you all for watching. And yeah, I included Yuffie's Brave Shift animation here with the fireworks, because as you might all noticed, Christmas is very close by. So I don't want to include this in this review because it will age badly. So when you're watching this around December 18th, please check out my soon to come community post where I will schedule my video plans for the next week, because Christmas is coming up. I have a lot of plans and other things, so my videos for the Christmas week will be heavily delayed, so just that you know, but I lay it out in the community post. So thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see each other, well, in a week or two. I don't know for sure right now, but I'll figure it out soon. See you then, bye bye.